in. Yeah, I've started. We're live, and I've got the handsome, the talented, the brilliant Dave Aronberg, who is a legal expert, a lawyer, a Florida lawman, as he referred to himself in his last job. Dave, welcome back to Stand Up. Thank you for joining me.
Pete, I'm a big fan and happy to be on the show with you. I call myself Florida lawman. I know it's like you can't call yourself T-Bone, right? The Seinfeld thing, but I did, and I got a trademark even.
Oh, you did? There it is. That's great. I love it. Well, let's just explain a little bit about, you've been on with me before. We know each other pretty well. We're both good friends with Glenn Kirshner and do his event every year. But just remind people a little bit of your background, because you just kind of made a transition out of official Florida law, man, right? You were the state attorney at Palm Beach. Is that right?
Yes, I was the state attorney, which is the equivalent of the DA, district attorney, for Palm Beach County. That's the huge county that also includes a place called Mar-a-Lago. So I was the top law enforcement official there for 12 years and saw a lot of stuff. Palm Beach County hits above its weight. And before then, I was a state senator, and I ran for Attorney General of Florida. In fact, I ran and lost in a Democratic primary, and the guy who beat me, I endorsed him against the Republican, and the Republican won that race, a woman named Pam Bondi. And so that's been my past. And then she reached across party lines to hire me as her drug czar to go after the pill mills, the opioid epidemic. And so that's another part of my career, going after prescription drug abuse. And here I am now, a private sector. I left government after 25 years and opened up my own law firm, Dave Aronberg Law. We're a boutique litigation firm. I published a book called Fighting the Florida Shuffle, which is about fraud and abuse in the drug treatment industry. And I even started my own Substack because I want to be like you, Pete, at Dave Aronberg, figuring it all out. But, we're moving.
Well, I love that you're doing all that. You've become a really good source for people. You've got a lot of credibility on all these issues, including many that you just mentioned about. I think I could spend the next 25 minutes talking just about some of the things you know a lot about, as opposed to just news of the day. I'm going to do a little bit of both, because I certainly want to ask you about a bunch of things that are happening right now. But before we get started in that, like, what is your relationship then with Trump, the Trump family, Pam Bondi, given your 12 years in Palm Beach, Florida?
Well, I don't really have a relationship with the Trump family. I don't know them. I have met Trump back in the day. He was a Democrat, remember? He was giving money to Hillary Clinton. He supported Democrats. And then he moved over to a party where he could control. It was like a host body, as they say. The Republican Party was like a host body, and he came in and he dominated the host. But as far as Pam Bondi, so I ran against her technically, although that gives me too much credit. She likes to say that she beat me and then she hired me. That gives me too much credit because I didn't even make it past the opening round. I didn't get to the playoffs. And on the issue of pill mills and the drug treatment, the opioid abuse, we were in line on that, and she and I worked together on closing down those pill mills. And when it came to that, that was something that I thought that deserves credit, because that was an epidemic in Florida. We were the worst of the worst. We were the pill supplier for the rest of the country. Obviously, we have our differences on policy and about President Trump and a lot of things. But when it came to that issue, and that was back in 2010 and 2011, it was a while ago. The Republican Party has changed a lot. There are a lot of people who, right? In the what they call the normies, they went in two different directions. You can go the direction of Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, or you can go in the direction of just about everyone else, and it's a party of Trump now. And Pam Bondi is the Attorney General. If you want to keep your job as Attorney General, you can't be a Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. One thing about Pam Bondi that I could say is that her loyalty to Donald Trump is real. This is not like Lindsey Graham loyalty, where he's like, you're the best, boss, and then under your breath you curse at him. No, this is something that she really is a devotee, like really is loyal to him. And I predicted that. I knew she'd be loyal. There's some of the stuff that is being done at DOJ that I couldn't have foreseen, and clearly I disagree with. But on the loyalty side, that was something that was easily predictable.
Yeah. Well, what about the rest of Florida? I mean, do you know anything about Epstein? Wasn't he there when you were there?
It's a good question because Epstein's case came through my old office, although I wasn't state attorney at the time. So I got elected at the end of 2012, took over in 2013, and the Epstein case was ended around 2008. So we're talking about like 5 years before I got there, and it was 3 administrations prior to me.
Right.
But what happened then is you had the state attorney who was investigating Epstein and the police chief of Palm Beach, a guy named Ryder. He was so upset with the investigation because he wanted to take down Epstein. He wasn't giving this guy any breaks, and he was going to go after him because he saw this for what it was. And he was so dissatisfied with the way the state was handling it, he went to the feds. He said, "Feds, come in. U.S. Attorney's Office, come in." And the feds did. And they came in and they essentially took the case away. And then they ended up with a worse deal than the state did. In fact, why did the feds come in if they were going to negotiate a plea deal with Epstein that
Well,
would
that's
require him to yeah.
one of many really good questions, and the obvious example or answer would be to protect somebody, right? Is that what
Well,
you're?
I don't think anyone knows. That's the thing that I wish I had known. I don't think that they went in there because they wanted to protect Epstein. Epstein was a pretty toxic guy. I mean, the rumors about him, that's why the feds came in. That's why the police, let's get him. But he had very prominent lawyers, Alan Dershowitz, Jack Goldberger, like locally and federally, like well-known, well-respected lawyers. And they had certain relationships with local and federal prosecutors that gave them access. And I think the access that they got made them convince the prosecutors that you got no case. Here's dirt on these victims. Here's dirt on these girls. They're out there flaunting the money. They're like, and under the law at the time, if you were underage and you were doing sex acts for money, you were seen under the law as a prostitute, which is crazy because now, thankfully, the laws have changed and we understand that they're victims. They're not criminals. But that's why Epstein was eventually charged with solicitation of prostitution, which is kind of insulting because can't consent under the law. But back then, the law was different. That's not to excuse any prosecutor. That's not to justify it. It's just to give a partial explanation.
Yeah, a partial explanation. A lot of it we still don't know about. Obviously, it's crazy. I saw yesterday, by the way, somebody who I really like and respect, a political analyst, Brian Beutler, and he basically insinuated, he said the quiet part out loud. It's like they got it right now. Republicans in the House, especially, they must be protecting Donald Trump. And it's got to be that there's something very bad, between him and Epstein and children. And otherwise, what else could it be? I mean, he basically said it, and I was surprised because he's not the kind of guy. I should have the exact quote in front of me. But do you have any speculation on anything about why Republicans brought their people to the water and then just said, turn around and go home and stop the mission to release Epstein files? I mean, or why they're protecting, it would seem, Trump?
It is amazing how the same people who were perpetuating these conspiracy theories are now saying, nothing to see here. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino were out there saying, there's an Epstein list and we're going to release it, release the files, release the list. And then they get there saying, no list. And actually, from what I've gathered, what I've seen, I don't think, and by the way, I haven't seen anything, no inside information. I've never had the grand jury transcripts or anything like that. But when I talk to people, when I read things, like read accounts from people that are in the news, I don't believe there was an Epstein list where he would actually write down the list of the Johns, but there's an Epstein file, and the file does contain names of people who are implicated with Epstein. And that's the gold mine, but that is what the administration is refusing to turn over. And I think the reason why is that Trump's name is in the file. It doesn't mean he committed a crime. It just means his name's in the file. He doesn't want anything to do with Epstein. So that's why he's saying when his name came out in that birthday card, that it's a hoax. It's a hoax. Well, no, you know how we know it's not a hoax is that if it were a hoax, then the Attorney General and Kash Patel would have come out and said, that birthday card is not in the files. We've got the files. It's not in there. No, it's in there. So for it to be a hoax, you have to say that some random person did a birthday card for Epstein 20 years ago, pretend to be Donald Trump and signing just like him and doodling like he doodled. That doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? So that's why his lawsuit against Wall Street Journal is just dead on arrival.
We'll talk about lawsuits because there's plenty of them to discuss and really hard to keep track. Dave, how do you, I mean, you're a legal analyst, you go on all the networks and talk to a lot of people and explain a lot of things. How do you keep track of all the legal actions and all of the lawsuits? I mean, right now, there's a huge lawsuit by states against the federal government over those SNAP funds. I mean, every day there's so many legal issues happening. So much. How do you keep track of it?
You know, you have to. It's like swim or drown, because if you go on a show to do legal analysis and you are not keeping track of the big stories, they'll ask you that. Even if they tell you, you know, most of the time they'll tell you the topics in advance, not the questions, but the topics. We're going to touch upon this, this, and this. But then you've got, you know, a show like Morning Joe Scarborough will say, oh, what about this other thing? And you don't want to give the answer is, I didn't prepare. So you have to know enough to give something about any topic. You got to be really prepared. So that is the thing. You've got to not let grass grow under your feet. And that is something when you're a lawyer, you have a day job, it is an ongoing challenge. But if you step into the arena, you got to be prepared for it. I love talking about legal issues because it's a passion of mine, especially the legal political side of things. I do the true crime, which I love, but you know, I grew up, I'm in the politics. I was a state senator. So when you have that niche of law and politics, I think that is where I'm probably a little different than most other legal analysts who are like came from the courtroom, whereas I came from being a state senator and being involved in politics and then became a prosecutor.
What do you think about con law and the Supreme Court, and how much do you talk about that on your cable news hits and in your career, and how much do you leave that to kind of con law scholars? And is there anybody or any ideology that you like? Because I don't know if you know, but I am a disciple of Professor Eric Siegel of Georgia State University. You know, the court is not a court. Justices are not judges. Politicians in robes. A pretty radical guy who a lot more people have moved towards, I think, as things have turned the way they are with the Supreme Court. But how do you think about that, Supreme Court con law?
I love constitutional law, and that's something I embrace it. I love talking about it. I taught classes at the local college, Palm Beach State College. Yes, I was the intro to con law professor, and it was my favorite class at law school. When I was in law school, there was a guy, my professor was Richard Parker, and Professor Parker had the same exact philosophy as Professor Siegel, which is these guys wear the black robes, but these are political decisions, and what motivates people are fears. And he it's very similar. And I do love that subject more than any other part of the law. And that's why whenever there's a constitutional law subject, I love opining on it. What happens is you'll sometimes get shows that they peg you to a certain lane. And since my background is prosecutor's criminal law, they'll say, okay, if it's not a crime, if it's just a constitutional law subject, we'll give it to the egghead who's the constitutional law expert. It's like, no, I can talk about it too, right? So can you. Right. How about Pete Dominic? He's an egghead. He can do it, right?
Literally, I mean, I look like one, but I'm not. I'm in no way a nerd about anything. I wish I were. I know I don't know a lot about anything for more than like 2 minutes. But do you think the simple answer, I guess, is, do you think that these basically this is a Republicans, they're advocating for Republican or MAGA policy, the majority on the court?
Yeah, I think you have the two swing justices are Republican, non-MAGA, and I think they're the key. They own this court. That's Amy Coney Barrett and Chief Justice Roberts. The others are MAGA. They're in there. Gorsuch, Thomas, and Alito especially. I mean, they're solid. So you have a 3-3-3 split on the court, really. Those three you can pretty much what they're going to say in every decision. Kavanaugh is MAGA adjacent. He's right there, but the court is owned by those two justices, Coney Barrett and Chief Justice Roberts, which was a pity. It was Chief Justice Roberts that wrote the immunity decision, which was just so terrible, too vague, too overbroad.
What'd you say?
It was too vague and too overbroad. Even Amy Coney Barrett couldn't stomach the worst part of it. She dissented from the worst part of it, which made it pretty much impossible to investigate a president for an unofficial act, because you can't interview his official players to investigate an unofficial act. Like, you can't go and start talking to people at the Justice Department and interviewing them about an allegation that the president is accepting a bribe, because that would also violate the Constitution, which Amy Coney Barrett said, no, that's ridiculous.
Since you do like talking about it, let me just ask you one more question about it, which is this argument that we heard, I guess, a couple weeks ago now. And your thoughts on John Roberts' long legacy, as I understand it, against voting rights. And we heard this argument a couple weeks ago. They already gutted Section 5, right? Section 2 is now next. And it's a pretty horrible, terrible thing in my mind. And we already know the damages that the case called Shelby County did to voting rights in a number of states when they said, I don't have to worry about this anymore. And that day, Texas changed their law. I mean, and we've seen some of the other states do their best. So what are your thoughts on that argument? And what are your thoughts on the future of voting rights based on it?
I'm very worried, obviously, because it's not just the Voting Rights Act, but also the way that gerrymandering has been given a green light by the Supreme Court, where there's really no standards. I mean, you can just pick your voters however you want, pretty much. The Supreme Court has decided to get out of that business, and we're seeing the effects in Florida now, because we're already dominated by Republicans, a state that is Republican, but not overwhelmingly, and yet our congressional delegation is overwhelmingly Republican, and going to get worse because DeSantis says, because I can. And when the courts have decided to abdicate their role, then it's just pure political power, and that's not the way it should be. So yes, I am concerned about it. I don't know the way out of it. It may take a constitutional amendment. I don't know. Our system is already undemocratic enough as it is. I mean, ask the voters of California, who have the same number of U.S. senators as North Dakota. So we already have an undemocratic system that, but of course, we're not really a democracy. We're a republic, but still, you believe there should be some fairness in the system.
Well, even though when you say we're not a democracy, we're a republic, it's like so many times, Republicans and conservative leaning Americans, they heard that for the first time, and they love to argue that as if it's an argument against democracy. I think that sometimes we just really need to dumb it down for ourselves and for people watching and listening, and explain what democracy is and why representation matters and the whole history of it. So we don't need to do that with you, because I think probably muddle my way through that. Let's get back to some of the more serious issues that Dave Aronberg can certainly talk about, which matter a lot. By the way, when you say I don't know our way out of it, I mean, the only way out of it is to change the makeup of the Supreme Court or pack the court. And since that's not happening, even whether or not you agree with it, for a long time, if ever, let's talk about the fact that we're just getting into it. You talked about a way out of it. We're just getting into it. Trump is suing the Justice Department, demanding $230 million. I just got to ask you about that. I mean, that was a headline about 6 days ago, and now it's kind of gone down because so much other shit has flooded the zone. But I got to ask you to weigh in on, I don't even know how to wrap my head around that, or how to explain it to people that might not have paid attention or be legal experts themselves.
This was a strategy of Steve Bannon. He said it out loud, that we're going to flood the zone with so much shit that nothing's going to matter. It's going to be all one-day stories. But can you imagine? I always love to do the Barack Obama test. Can you imagine Barack Obama said, I'm suing the federal government, and I'm putting my lawyers into the DOJ, and they're going to approve my settlement claim of $230 million. I mean, the Republicans would have a quadruple Benghazi over it. But
I'm sorry, sir. You've had a quadruple Benghazi. We can't save you. No, you're absolutely right to constantly make that comparison. But
so it is just crazy that this is even being entertained. But I think actually, when it comes to this, it is such a blatant conflict of interest. It is so over the top egregious that I think this will sit for a while, and then if it's done, it'll be done at the end of the presidency on his way out. And people will be appalled. But I mean, how can you ever justify it? And first of all, let's not even assume that these claims are legit, like malicious prosecution. How is it malicious prosecution when you are claiming two things? First, the so-called Russia hoax, which was not a hoax because the Mueller report has like 140 pages detailing all these connections between Russia and the Trump campaign. And secondly, a Senate Intelligence Committee report whose chairman was Marco Rubio, not some sort of deep state liberal, right? Marco Rubio, his committee report found that, yes, there were ties between the Russian government and the Trump campaign. So it wasn't a hoax. And number two, the second thing is the Mar-a-Lago documents case where they so-called raided his home at Mar-a-Lago. Okay, number one, when it comes to the raid, it wasn't a raid. It was a search warrant. And the officers who did it worked with the Secret Service to make sure there were no guns drawn. They were not in law enforcement uniforms. It was a very peaceful search. And number two, they had a warrant. This was not the DOJ just saying, let's go search this place. They went to a federal magistrate and got a warrant meeting all the proper standards of probable cause. So how do you get paid from any of that? You don't. You shouldn't. So it would be so egregious if he did.
So let me just ask you one other question, getting back to Jack Smith in a second there, because there's obviously a connection there because Jack Smith he was a special prosecutor. But just yesterday I heard James Comer on CNN. I don't know if you saw this 2-minute clip or moment where Tapper was basically asking James Comer, who of course investigated corruption in the Biden administration and spent days and millions of dollars and lots of time on Hunter Biden and corruption, and if he was, using his dad's name, trading on his dad's name and so on. And basically Tapper named off a few different things that Trump and his family have done to enrich themselves. And Comer's argument was, listen, he's doing it publicly. Everybody knows what he's doing. He's being very transparent about it. It's when politicians hide these things that it's a problem. And I'm not sure if I heard that right. And I wish I could have just played the clip for you, because I do want to be fair to what James Comer or anybody says. I'm not that guy. But what I heard was, if you commit crimes publicly, or if you commit to these corrupt money-making schemes, and you tell everybody, taking the plane, the crypto schemes and so on, then it's okay because everybody can see what you're doing and the public can judge for themselves. But my question really, Dave, is I think the word corruption gets so overused, and we know it's bad, but people don't really unpack it when it comes to government. But Trump is constantly making deals for himself and his family and his friends using America and our assets and our money and our power. And Comer's basically, in my opinion, saying everybody's watching him do it, so it's okay. We don't need to investigate it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as a former prosecutor, it was never a defense to say, yeah, I robbed the bank, but I did it openly, and I even announced my intentions in advance. You don't get a get-out-of-jail-free card by being transparent. In fact, in some ways, it makes it worse. It shows you have so much hubris, so much arrogance. They're like, yeah, I can get away with it. I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. Here I'm shooting someone on Fifth Avenue. Well, the person you shot is still dead or injured, and you're still guilty of a crime, whether you're open about it or not. So it's the whole thing is ludicrous. The Binance scandal is to pardon the founder because they invested in your crypto coin. I mean, and now we're not even talking about that. I mean, can you imagine again if Obama did just a smidgen of what's been going on now? Come on.
Nobody ever that test is just, I don't even do it anymore. Like the trying to make that point just seems quaint because of the kinds of things that happen every single day. Every single day. I mean, if we're going to do that, the worst is, and I'll play, is Hillary Clinton saying basket of deplorables.
Yeah. And
Trump and Caroline Leavitt calling non-MAGA people enemy of the people, terrorists, terrible animals, and all the worst names you can call people, and describing everybody that way. But that's okay. You can do that. What's worse, deplorable or enemy.
She didn't call them deplorable. She just called them Antifa-loving America haters.
Right.
Hillary Clinton said half of them were deplorables. I don't even think she said all of Trump supporters. Didn't she say half of them? And such a scandal.
And by
when
the
you
way,
use
she
a private
said that.
team,
Not that it's okay, but she did say it off the record, meaning she didn't purposely say it. Trump and Caroline Leavitt, they purposely name call and say the worst kinds of things, they're inciting violence all the time. If you say somebody's the enemy, that's Rwanda shit.
Oh man, yeah, that's hardcore. Well, man, that's a tough reference, but it is bad. Language matters. Language matters, and we see that, and that's why this escalating political violence has to stop. And it's important that we call it out. You got to call it out.
Let me ask you about the whole Jack Smith thing. What is going on? This is going to backfire. Like Democrats today are saying we demand Jack Smith be allowed to come testify. Republicans, I don't think, want to testify. We haven't heard much from this guy, but my understanding is he knows his shit. That's why Merrick Garland, who took such a long time to appointed him. He did a real good job, apparently, by everybody's standard in terms of his investigation. And now Trump has targeted him, along with obviously Tish James and James Comey and so many others, which you've written and talked a lot about. If people are following Dave, he's got some really interesting insights, of course, on it. But Jack Smith, huh? What's happening there? What do we need to know?
Jack Smith would just eat Comer's lunch if he testified. And I think Comer realized he overplayed his hand when he's out there saying, I want him to testify. And then they realized, no, you don't. You don't. And if you demand that he testifies behind closed doors, he's going to say, no, I want to testify in public. And I've got volumes of information I'd like to reveal. And I think they realized that they made a mistake. You don't want to mess with this guy. I think also they compared him to Robert Mueller. Remember when Mueller testified, he was not at the top of his game. He had aged and was just not the same Robert Mueller as we were used to. And I think that gave the Republicans this false sense of security. Let's embarrass the next guy. No, you don't want to mess with Jack Smith. That guy is a killer. You see, he would walk down the street during the investigation and the cameras would follow him. And he'd be there with his thermos in one hand and a Subway sandwich in the other and not even crack a smile. I mean, you don't want to mess with him.
Do you know him?
No, I would love to meet him. I mean, he's a prosecutor's prosecutor. That guy's gangsta, as they say. No, I'd love to meet him.
Well, yeah, I mean, they really do want him to testify there. I mean, well, aren't they? But isn't Trump targeting him? Isn't he going to indict him for some made up charges? Like
what? I want to hear this one though. But what? What do you think?
I actually don't know. I haven't read into it at all, but I don't know. For having a beard, aren't you not allowed to have a beard anymore? I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, what they do is they have this guy at the Housing Finance Corp to look at everyone's mortgages to see if you claimed a second mortgage.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What's the guy's name? I forget his name.
His name, but he's got access to everybody's personal documents, and he's using them to try to create a crime. He's going to look for a crime. No one's bringing this. And then what they're finding out that guy, Bill Pulte, they're finding out that like the people in the Trump administration themselves, cabinet secretaries, have actually committed this crime, is my understanding. Like I forget which ones. Maybe it was Scott Bessent or other. He likes to fight everybody. I don't know if you knew that, by the way.
Yeah, he was taking on, was it Bannon and Elon Musk? Elon Musk he was taking on. That's right. And then there was another one he was taking on recently. He's got quite a temper. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that he's got one gay guy in his cabinet he's given the job to, and he's the fucking baddest ass, wants to have fist fights with everybody guy. And he's also a billionaire soybean farmer, apparently.
I kind of respect that. I sort of think that, when you're like this rich gay guy in the cabinet, the only openly gay member of the cabinet, and you're the one just laying down the law and you're just throwing elbows at people. I think that's
yeah, it's fine if you're a gay man. If you're a gay woman doing that, I don't know. Does he have any lesbian women that he's appointed to his cabinet? I mean, he wouldn't. The thing about him is that he actually doesn't care about those issues as much as people think they do when it comes to a one-on-one basis. If you are a black person or a gay person or anybody else, even if I bet you if we're trans, I guess that wouldn't pass. But almost any other kind of category of human being, identity or whatever, as long as you kiss the ring, you're good. You can
You know,
hang out with him as long as I mean, as long as you send money for his giant ballroom it doesn't matter. As long as you kiss the ring, any foreign leader, anybody has said anything about him in the past, as long as you take that knee, you're in. You're one of the good guys then.
Well, what about when you talk about trans? I would say it doesn't matter who you are. He does not discriminate. If you're a supporter of his, he's transactional. Right. He will accept it. Kris Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner. Sorry, Caitlyn Jenner.
Yeah.
I mean, trans and Trump embraces her, and it does not matter if you support him. He will have your back.
You did. You found a trans person who he embraced. I'm sure he won't let Caitlyn Jenner in the White House or around him, but he appreciates the support and might appoint him to some important job. All right, I misgendered Caitlyn Jenner. Dave, what else do we need to know? I'll let you go. I really appreciate your time and that beautiful Windsor knot that I've noticed. Been meaning to tie. That is you really know what you're doing, tying the necktie.
It's a half Windsor, my friend. I've never really been on the Windsor. It's a little too thick. This is the way I've always known how to tie a tie. I'm just glad that this in itself hasn't totally gone out of style because, it's the only way I know how to tie a tie. And I am fully clothed. I know sometimes you do these shows and, you end up not wearing pants, but no, I am. Sport jacket and pants. I was doing some streaming stuff today and I was supposed to do some TV hits, but it's a news cycle, and if it's not a legal story, they'll bump you for someone to talk about. Snap, that it's out of my lane.
Right.
But it doesn't matter because as long as I'm here with you, Pete, because it's a great show and I love it.
I appreciate you slumming it with me. Are you wired in, or can you walk backwards away from your computer and we can see that you're not lying about your pants?
I am. I've got this wire. Hold on, but I'll show you. There,
I believe
that. There it is.
Like, he really does. I don't even want to do the same because I'm wearing just a Speedo. Dave, it is so great to talk to you and have you back. I learn a lot when I talk to you, when I read you, when I follow you. I appreciate you doing this today, and we'll do it again real soon, man. And thank you everybody for watching live. And Dave, what are we plugging? Mostly, what are you promoting?
Thank you. Yes, I have a new Substack, Dave Aronberg on Substack. Also, check out my book, Fighting the Florida Shuffle, about fraud and abuse in the drug treatment industry. And that's really all I'm promoting right now, those two things. And also, I have my law firm, Dave Aronberg Law. It's a boutique law firm based in South Florida. We do litigation and immigration now. How do you like that? So, yep, that's it.
Well, let's talk again real soon. I'm going to get the book and read in on it because that's an issue that really matters a lot, and I want to learn more about and talk about it, and still something that is a great deal of importance to it. So thank you very much, Dave. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Pete.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. Talk to you later.